at the top of the ticket. You know, I don't think there's any chance of taking out Mitch McConnell or Lindsey Graham. I think it complicates things in places like Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona. Makes it harder. You know, and in Florida, obviously now with the Cuba stuff. I mean, that just, you know, totally puts us behind the eight ball in Florida.
What do you think?
I mean, I think that it's a reality right now that most Democrats, not just Bernie Sanders, running for president, are far more progressive than the swing districts there. And that's including someone like Joe Biden, right? The first 2 or 3 times he ran for president, he was staunchly against a public option. And what do you look at? Most of the Democrats that are running in these swing seats, they support a public option. And that is because, and we're seeing it result after result on some of these early states, and saw it in Nevada, people are hurting, right? And they want a healthcare system that is going to put them over profits. And despite millions of dollars of disinformation here, Americans are still overwhelmingly choose to go with a Medicare for all or a single payer type system. I think the other thing that's important to point out is that we heard these same critiques about down ballot being lost with Barack Obama in 2008. And so that again solidifies the fact that I think Bernie Sanders is the front runner. He's going to be taking these hits left and right.
Or Donald Trump in 2016.
In 2016, exactly.
You know, so actually, there's research that talks about this and shows when you've got a more extreme presidential candidate, you actually open up some running room for people down ballot, so they can take positions that then look more reasonable, whether on health care. I mean, look, part of this, I think, is Bernie Sanders is actually pitching. I don't agree with any element of the policy proposal, just to be clear, but free health care, free college, free XYZ. After a while, it sounds pretty good to people who are aggrieved with the system, who don't believe that the establishment is doing the job it needs to be doing for them, who want to see the swamp drained. This is stuff that is music to people's ears. So I agree that there's an extremism here, but I think potentially it could benefit down ballot, but also it could benefit people who are looking for something different.
What do you think? Because obviously you're concerned about keeping the House of Representatives in Democratic control.
Yeah, I think, first of all, we have to give voters a little bit more credit. I think it is a lazy argument to say that based on who's at the top of the ticket, you can't make a decision, an isolated decision about this proposition or this particular...
But people do vote more straight party line than they have in the past.
Sure, but let me just give you another example. There was Amendment 4 on the ballot in Florida, which would re-enfranchise several people who are returning citizens from incarceration. There were people who voted for that ballot initiative who were Republican. So it had 64% approval or whatever. So people are still able to decipher, this person is more in alignment with my positions, this person is not. I just don't think it's a real thing.
So there's one thing. Say, listen, candidates matter as well, right? So, you know, Democrats have been getting great, you know, House folks to run for House seats. It all depends on who the candidate is. This could be candidate by candidate race in these congressional districts. They're going to be more in play, right, if you have in these 33 Trump districts, right? But those are all very localized.
So I want to ask you about this because if you look at the crosstabs of the most recent Washington Post, ABC News poll, where Sanders is doing really well, in the head-to-head matchups between Democrat versus Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders does the worst with white college-educated women who are credited in many ways with helping the House become Democratic in November 2018. That Bernie Sanders is the weakest among white college-educated women. Is that a concern at all, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things here. I think one, to kind of fold into what we were all talking about, voters don't necessarily make decisions whether or not someone is a moderate or whether someone is a progressive. It's not necessarily ideological. It is about who is putting forward policies that are not only going to defeat Donald Trump, but are actually going to transform the lives of the poor and working people in this country. And I think largely the voters are asking themselves that question. I think number two, obviously that demographic is really important. They were critical to the House, but they also are, you know, there's a number of candidates in the race. And I think it's also, we have to talk about the new generation of Democratic voters that the Democratic Party has to pay attention to. And they are increasingly young, they are increasingly Black, increasingly Latino. And if we want to be able to have a turnout that we did not get in 2016, where we saw a lot of that demographic of people sit at home that cost us the general election, I think that, we have to be concerned about also not just talking to the same voters that we always talk to.
You got that turnout, just not in the right states. But everyone stick around. We got more to talk about. Keep it here for the night.